So it's the morning of the 24th of May, and I believe Ernie died on the 15th here in the cottage. And she brought him home, Roxana brought him home for hospice care on the 12th, or was it the 13th? I didn't make note in my calendar because I was in such a state of disbelief and dismay because when he was brought here, he was already comatose. He was unresponsive. And the male nurse that was on duty that helped get him installed in the room here gave us instructions on how to apply water and food to the peg tube. And then he cut out. He's gone. And now it's just Roxana and me. And she's pronounced it. This is going to be a good idea because, Reed, we're going to take care of him. He lives 7 weeks or 7 months, but you owe it to him to take care of him, and I'll help too. But he was already a goner, and I could see that he was declining very fast, and we couldn't get water and get food into the peg tube. Even with the two of us, we couldn't do it properly. It's a one-person job, but yet the two of us couldn't do it properly. And then the oxygen concentration machine that generates oxygen, every 10 minutes, its alarm would go off, beep, 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 and it was still working. I called the equipment company and said, "Oh, it's still working. If it's blowing out air," and it was, just shut it off and turn it back on. But then 10 minutes later, beep, beep. So if he was, what time did they bring him here? Say they brought him here at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. This machine was going beep, beep, beep every 10 minutes. Roxanne and I couldn't get water and food into the peg tube. He's comatose, and I'm in a terrible emotional state because this is somebody I love so much, and I felt that we weren't competent to give him proper care. So the oxygen machine was making these beeping noises all night long, and Kevin went out and got, or Roxana went out to get some supplies, and she brought home a baby alarm, which is nice because then I could listen to the room sounds even though I'm in my chair 20 feet away in the next room, and if there was any sounds of distress or if the oxygen machine went beep beep beep, I would hear it. But it just kept going off, and she excused herself. Say around late in the evening, maybe 11 o'clock. She had to go to bed. And I'm left with this thing going beep, 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 and he's comatose. And I say, this is not working. And I call her up, and I say, please call the equipment company or something. They've got to get this thing replaced tonight. This isn't acceptable. So around 3 a.m., the equipment man came out, and he replaced the entire machine. It's a rollabout machine that generates oxygen from room air. And Roxana had stayed with him from about midnight until the equipment man came. Yeah, so she didn't get much sleep. So then she finally got to go to bed around 3:30 or so after the new machine was installed. At 7:30 in the morning, nobody was here. There was no way I could give him water or food or do anything for him. And he's getting weaker and weaker. He's completely unresponsive. And I called at 7:30 and I said, "Roxana, I need help." And she said, "Reed, I was up all night. I need to sleep." She was irritated with me. So I hung up the phone. And I waited until 9 a.m. and nobody had come out. And Arnie's dying. So I called 911 because I don't want him dying under these circumstances. The 911 people come out, and so do Miami police. And they look at him, and Roxana is alerted, and she talks to him. She explains, well, we have a DNR order, and he's, maybe he's dying. And the 911 guys told me, they said, listen, he's very, very close to passing away, and that's just the way it is, And there is a DNR order where there was no heroic measures to be made. I said, but they brought him home for a hospice treatment. We can't even feed him or give him water. He's not dying because of DNR. He's not dying because of cardiac arrest. He's dying because of dehydration and starvation, and I don't think it's right. And I was really upset with Roxana. Well, in result of this, and I had some chats with the local police who came out also about my inhalation of propane, which I've done for 15 years or so, and it's harmless. But anyway, Roxana went and filed for a restraining order against me because I used language against her. I said I felt that her motivations and her actions were irresponsible and harmful to Ernie, my life partner, and I'm very protective of him. Well, a couple of hours later, not even that long, maybe an hour, the hospice organization sent out a male nurse. Yannick, I think is his name, really nice guy. And there you have professional care. He knows how to apply water. He knows how to give the person morphine, which he did, to keep him calm, keep him unconscious. and then he would be spelled after 8 hours by a young lady named Lindsay, and they were both so tender and nice for the 2 days that he lasted. But he was dying, and they explained to me, Yannick, the next day he said, we can't feed him anymore because he vomited yesterday. Well, Roxana didn't tell me that. She told me this after the fact. She told me on my birthday, because I didn't have any contact with her for days. Oh, she said, Reed, but we brought him home and we weren't going to be able to feed him anymore. But that's not true, because we were feeding him. We were trying to feed him. But the next day, apparently, the male nurse said he vomited. And there's one reason for that, and only one reason. Because he had been bound up, laid in bed for so long, for a month, his intestines were impacted with feces. There wasn't any bowel movement possible. And what happens after a week or 10 days or 2 weeks, if you're on a liquid diet or whatever kind of diet, you're going to vomit. There's no place for the food to go in. So even if you're putting food nicely into the stomach with the peg tube, you're going to vomit. So that was the end. No way to feed him further, unless, of course, there was some sort of heroic way. And I'm not a gastroenterologist like my grandfather. Unless there's some heroic way to move the bowels of a comatose person, he's going to die. So I just disagree with the way she handled it. I was very upset with her. Now, his death means that I don't know what the legal situation is with the house, because I have a will leaving everything to me, yet that may be superseded by something called a quitclaim deed. He wanted to protect her because she's put money into the house, and I don't mind her having the house. I don't really need the house, but I don't want to be evicted. I've been living here for 38 years, and I was promised I would have a home here for life. Ernie and I were married. Not legally, because there was no legal marriage in 1983, but April 1st, 1983, he literally told me when we came home from dinner one evening at Bob Longstreth's home, and we were in bed just watching TV, he suddenly began to cry, and he cried, he got really emotional. He said, Reed, and I said, what is it? He said, will you marry me? And I said, okay. and we had a wonderful buddy relationship for all these years, and now he's gone, and I've got to adjust to life without him. So I'm going through a grieving process, and I'm not trying to stress anybody, and I'm not shouting at anybody, but I did that day when she brought him home, and then that oxygen machine was making the beeping sound, and we couldn't put water in his belly or food in his belly, and I just felt this was the worst decision ever, to have done this, put this on me. I'm too close to them. I'm not a nurse. And when the professional nurses came and took over the next day, you really appreciated what angels of mercy they are and how well trained they are in hospice situations, taking care of people so tenderly and maintaining dignity for the family and for the dying person. They were wonderful. It would take me years to learn how to nurse like that. And you know what? I wouldn't have the emotional capacity to do it. It takes a certain kind of empathy and yet detachment. You have to be professional, and they were wonderful. They were just as tender as can be. And in his last hour alive, they gently dressed him. They put a shirt on him, a polo shirt, one of my shirts, so that he would look nice, and he just faded away, completely unconscious. And I took a little YouTube video of it. That's my memory, but you can see how tender I am towards him and how much I miss him. Okay, that's enough.